Right, I think we're right to commence. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for your attendance here this evening. And as usual, can I just ask yourselves and also my fellow councillors and staff to ensure your mobile devices are turned off or on silent. Thank you. And I'd also like to welcome those of you who are watching on YouTube, and in particular the young people from St Mary's Primary School in Myrtleford, years 5 and 6 students who the CEO and I visited today to talk about persuasive writing, and they did make some requests of council for some facilities, but it was well researched letters and very well presented. I must congratulate them on that. So hopefully they have taken some time out from home and away or MasterChef to watch the council proceeding. So item 1, the recording and live streaming of council meetings. Mr. Bird.
All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on the specific area, however audio from the entire room is captured. By speaking during question time or at any time during the meeting, you consent to your voice and any comments you make being recorded. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is of course to hold us more accountable and improve transparency of council's decision making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you. And could we stand for the acknowledgement of traditional custodians, please?
The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we are now on. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all.
Thank you. Item 3.1, Ordinary Council Meeting M4, 1st of May. Could I move in a seconder that those meetings be... Councillor Nicholas, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Knapstein. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Apologies is Councillor Roper, who has previously given his apologies. Obituaries and congratulations. Item 5 from my right, Councillor Forsyth.
No.
Councillor Knapstein.
I'd like to congratulate... Forgetting. I'd like to congratulate the winner of the Bernice Delaney Volunteer of the Year Award, Trish Cross. There was a good turnout at the Deer and Emu Farm, and if you put a dollar value per volunteer per hour, apparently it stands at $30 per hour, which is an interesting stat. Thank you.
And I note that Trish is in the... Yeah. Sarah?
No, nothing for me.
Beryl?
No.
Tony? No, and nothing from myself. I actually do want to publicly acknowledge the volunteers that were not only at that function, but also all volunteers in our community. Without, as I said on the night, we can judge the strength of our community by the number of volunteers that we have. So we are doing very well. Item 6, declaration by Nil. Thank you. Item 7, public questions. There are no written questions on notice, so I will deal with questions from the floor. Just a moment, Mr. Doc. 2 questions per presenter from the floor. Thank you. Mr. Dyer, you had your hand up, so you know if I could. I know we go over this every week, but if you could just state your name for our records.
My name's Ray Dyer.
Thank you.
And I'm a resident of the Alpine Shire and reside in 2007. And Darryl will verify this because it was around the time that he had his drink driving charge when he was mayor.
I think that's unnecessary, sir.
Around about that time, Ray, yeah. Yes. I put in a letter to meet with all councillors because I had a serious matter I wanted to discuss with them. A problem I put down. And Darryl was away. Councillor Von Arx, Deputy Mayor, rang me and assured me that we'd have a meeting on the 29th of July in 2007 when Darryl and Councillor Mortone was back on board. I also went through to Bill Sykes, and Bill's office, Bill told me to write a letter and thank the Shire for going to meet with me. Well, I'm still waiting to meet with the Shire just over that one thing. I put a letter in the previous council, John, and I put a letter in to meet with the previous council before the last election. I got no response. I said, if you're not going to meet with me, I would like it in writing the reason why. I've had no response.
Well, Mr. Dyer, I'm going to give a response now, as we have previously. I have actually sat in a room with you and discussed your concerns. So I'm sorry, I'm unaware of where you're taking this.
I'll tell you exactly where I'm taking it.
You have been listened to on numerous occasions, and we have quite a substantial file on record about your complaints.
Nothing's been acted on as yet.
That's a matter
you
of
have a big file, but nothing's been acted on. I'll give you one example.
Interpretation. So your question is?
My question is, I get asked every time to put in writing to this Shire if I have a problem. And when I do put in writing, and as I explained, just a couple of incidents, a common courtesy to let me know why you won't meet with me.
I understand that it has been conveyed back to you that your complaint has been noted, and that a response one way or the other, whether it's been acted on or not, an explanation has been given to you.
Now the second question. My second question is, when I have the Victoria Police, Myrtleford Police, Sergeant Evans, say to me that he didn't give the Shire permission, and Natalie Cook knows this, Paul Evans said to me about it, he didn't give the Shire permission to take that bike, the two-wheeler bike that was in the park. It was taken by someone from the Shire that did not have any identification on their vehicle whatsoever. There was supposed to have been paperwork given to me before that bike was even taken. I have not received any paperwork. Natalie Cook did say to me, acting CEO at the time, that the paperwork was in the mail. I believe, Natalie, is that correct? Yes. The business with the electric bike, which was nearly, 3 or 4 months ago now?
It was at Christmas time. So
well, I said that someone had taken the bike, the Shire had taken the bike without permission from the police.
Yep, Mr. Dyer, what's the question? We understand that...
I'd like to know where my bike is now, because after 2 weeks that bike was got rid of.
I don't know, it's probably still...
Where's the accountability from the Shire over that bike?
You have been, I understand that correspondence has been sent to the address that you gave to us at a council meeting one evening here, and I have full confidence in the staff have sent that letter to you at the address that you gave us.
But Mr. Mayor, my question is, how much accountability have you got when you turned around and said to me 2 council meetings ago, the police, you were the guys that, the Shire was the people that took the bike, not the police.
Well, I'm not going to go into a debate about who said what to whom, when.
No, that's right. That's why I'd like to talk to Charlie Bird about it.
We have dealt with the Victoria Police in conjunction with our staff. Certain actions have been taken in relation to that conversation, and the result of that, those actions have been sent to you by mail to the address that you were given. If you want to take the matter further,
I will be taking it a lot further, I'll assure you of that, as I said to
certainly your right,
Ranger. Yes.
Thank you. Good night. Floor.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
My name's Tony Unsworth. I currently live at 14 Hargraves Road in Bright, and I understand, following a conversation with Tom yesterday and a letter I received today, that from the 1st of July I won't be at 14, I'll be in number 15 Hargraves Road. The people that I live with in that particular street have lobbied in protest about the renumbering of the street numbers. We believe we understand why council are doing it. It's a very good thing to do in time. Convenience quite considerably in doing it, and we don't quite understand why it's actually happening. The letter that I received says there's an ambulance issue potentially. Cited one issue that happened in the Buckland where there was a difficulty in identifying a property. That begs the question whether there was a number in fact there or not, which begs the other question as to the numbering system in the whole of the Shire, and I've worked with all of them in my time working with the Shire. I'd venture to say that probably a quarter, if not more, have no numbers on them. Those other ones probably have a branch or and the ambulances still can't find, allegedly, a potential heart attack. I really find this absolutely quite amazing. I don't know why we're being inconvenienced over this issue. I believe it's an issue which, I'm not discounting the fact that it's a standard which is desirable. However, it's not mandatory. It's not necessarily important, in my opinion. It may be that in the eyes of council. However, I would suggest to all of you that there are a serious number of other issues which have serious and higher priority than a renumber which is not mandatory or obligatory. As far as the matter of duty of care, which is the only thing that came up in my mind as to why council would want to pursue that, I don't understand it, because it's not a legal binding issue at all at this point in time. It's not law, so why are we pursuing that ahead of doing other things which are seriously more relevant to council and the municipality? I spent half an hour with Tom yesterday. I've spent many hours with my neighbours. It's gobbling up my time, it's gobbling up council resources. Surely my rates and my colleagues' rates are better spent on doing to you is, why are you doing this now? And why am I going to be copying inconvenience and expense? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Unsworth. Ms. Cook, do you have a reply to that from your department?
So I believe that you've covered most of the issues in your...
Excuse me, I've just blown the eardrum, so I've got to move closer.
Right. I believe you have covered most of the issues. So as you're aware, council has a responsibility as place, name and numbering authority for that.
I totally understand that, and I agree with that.
Yeah. And Hargreaves Road in particular has a certain anomaly in the way the numbers run across Hargreaves Road.
You don't have to go over that.
So in consultation with ambulance, there are a number of other roads that we are in the process. And Ambulance Victoria have agreed that it would make it difficult potentially to find properties on that road.
What about I just mentioned about the numbers of houses which don't actually have numbers. There's hundreds of them.
So there may be a number of high-risk areas.
Not
However, we
I
consider...
worked with council for 6 years, delivering bins around town, Mount Beauty particularly. I guarantee a quarter of the houses don't have numbers, and those that do are obscure. So how the hell can an ambulance politician tell you and me that they're disadvantaged by not having a proper address on the right side of the road? In fact, there's only one. Bob Adams, my neighbour, he's the only bloke in the whole lot. The rest are in sync, but they want to switch them over.
So
what's the point? You're just wasting my money and time on council.
Mr. Unsworth, I understand that you've been given sufficient time to make your case, and council have.
I'm happy to listen to that one.
and council are have made that it's an operational matter, and the staff are going to proceed in a certain manner. I certainly agree with you. There probably are other properties in our shire that don't fall within that, but once we become aware of them, I believe we have a duty of care to the responders that might come to your or a potential incident, but there could well be anyone from Wangaratta or Mount Beauty, or have no idea as to where they might be. So I think we have a duty of care as council to, once we have identified there is a problem, to rectify it, and also to ensure that when there are new subdivisions or new buildings put onto our system, that they are correctly numbered in the first instance, so that we don't have this anomaly going forward, causing undue stress to some people about this. But it's something that has occurred and it needs to be rectified.
Well, I thank you for that. I totally agree with you, but you didn't answer my second question. Why is this such a high priority, given there are a whole bunch of other stuff in the shire that needs addressing, which a lot of us would believe?
Well, we believe
way ahead of this.
Protection of life and property is a high priority.
It's not a legal issue, right? You know that. You're a former policeman. You've done your legal stuff, so have I. It's not a legal issue. It's not a contentious thing at law at this point in time. You can measure.
If a resident disagrees with the decision of council or council officer, there are certain paths that they can take.
Yes, we're aware of that. We'll be following that.
I don't want to be, prompt that, but.
My concern in doing that is just wasting more time and more resources. So why can't we sit down and have a conference and talk about it? We never got that opportunity in the first place.
Well, Hargraves Court isn't the only one that this has occurred to,
I'm aware of that.
and it continues on. So I understand there has been some assistance offered to certain departments to notify them of the changes.
Thanks, Ron.
Further questions from the floor?
Bob Adams, I'm a resident of Hargraves Road, and my house is probably the one that caused all the problems, because it was the first house built in 1974 in what was a cow paddock with a dirt road going up it, named Hargraves Road. There was no top extension to it. So the mess that's been caused by this numbering system was caused way back in 74 when they allotted my number as 25 in the middle of... I totally disagree with the way in which this was not communicated. We got a dictatorial letter from a Shire employee telling us that it would be done by the 30th of June. There was no discussion, and when asked about it, asked the person, they said, that's your discussion. Sorry, that's not the way we do things in a democracy. If you're going to change something that's official, then do it with the law. Don't do it with trying to bully people into decisions they don't want to make. I can tell you that the argument regarding emergency vehicles doesn't hold water in Hargraves Road. At other things, constantly, they find it quite easy, and they're new policemen. I also had a heart attack myself on the 4th of June 2004. 2 ambulances arrived within 4 minutes. So I don't think there's a problem with the numbering. The problem you've got is it's your mess. You created it. You allowed number 1 to be at the top of the street on the right-hand side, and number 2 to be down the bottom of the street, nearly 3/4 of a kilometre away, on the left-hand side as you come in. I'm telling you now, I'm not happy with the way this has been handled. I wrote to both you, the Mayor, and you, the CEO, 5 weeks ago. People and the telephone call. To my knowledge, I'm still waiting on a reply from my letters. But I can tell you, I did say in the letters, and I'll finish on this, I will not comply with your rules and regulations because they're not mandatory. So you're going to have 25 in the middle of the road, still affecting everyone else. You could have done it better by communicating. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. You want to respond, Natalie?
I simply wanted to say I'm sorry if you haven't received any communication. My understanding was is that everybody's received a phone call and a letter.
I have not received one thing from that first letter.
So if I could
checked my mailbox today.
Okay, so if I...
To expend any more energy
So,
on it, I'm telling you I'm not conforming with it. So don't waste any more time on me, because I'm not going to agree.
Thank you, Ms Cook. The matter's not
Thank
going
you.
to go any further in this conversation.
What am I saying? It won't go any further?
I'm saying that would appear that the conversation is not going to progress any
It's
further.
not going to go any further.
Thank you.
I thank you for the lack of communication.
Trish Cross from Mount Beauty. I was reading through tonight's agenda, and 8.3, it was all a bit gobbledygook to me. So my question is, and I'm really, Natalie's going to speak to it later, if you could just cover a couple of things to make sense for me, Natalie. Could I have a plain English explanation of what a protective disclosure policy is? What does it protect? And who is the coordinator? I know there was some reference to a coordinator there. So that's question one. Same issue. In the same 8.3.1, there's also mention of a welfare manager. And I know that's... Can you tell me what this role covers, please? So when you address that point, you can do it now if you want.
We'll wait till we get to the agenda item.
Yes, because Natalie's down to speak to it. So
that's correct.
That was all. Thanks,
Okay,
Natalie.
thank you.
Mary Pike from Toowoomba South. To try and keep council operations as transparent as possible, I'd like some sort of explanation as to what councillors' commitments are to council meetings and briefing session. No, I was at the submission session for the budget, and I thought I would have had the whole council there, and when I walked in I had the mayor and two councillors and the staff. And I noticed in the attachments to tonight's minutes, or tonight's agenda, following last meeting's minutes, that there were 4 apologies from councillors for that particular meeting. Now, are they apologising because they should have been at the meeting and they weren't there, or is there a limit to the councillors who should be present at those meetings?
No.
For transparency, I just think we need to know what commitments are.
Just say the only legal commitment that a councillor has is to attend these these formal council meetings, and that you don't have to attend those, nor do you have to attend a briefing session either.
So, following up with another question then, when do you get to know everything that's going on if you don't attend the briefing sessions? So it's all up to you to get it on the computer and read it? And if you don't understand, you just go to the appropriate person and ask questions? Okay.
You should, before you make a decision at this forum here, you should be fully informed. You should make yourself fully informed of the matters.
Yep.
And if you don't know, you should be asking.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Presentation of reports by item 8, presentation of reports by officers. Chief Executive Officer Mr Bird, contracts approved by the CEO. Sorry.
I'll second that.
Okay. Councillor Forsyth, was it? Councillor Nicholas. All those in favour? You want to speak?
No, I'm happy to.
All those in favour?
Very straightforward.
Okay, carried. Straightforward issues. 2.1, provision of marketing and event support and communication services for Dinner Plain. Mr Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report relates to the provision of marketing, event support and communication services for Dinner Plain. Council provides additional marketing, event support and communication services specific to the Dinner Plain village. These services have historically been delivered by a council officer. In January 2018, this position became vacant and a subsequent recruitment campaign was not successful in identifying a suitable replacement candidate. Delivery of the service through to the end of the 2017-18 financial year was tendered, and through this process, Carl Gray Media was awarded the work. A request for tender has been prepared. Tenders opened in April 2018, the 13th of April, and closed on the 10th of May. Tender documents downloaded by 61 prospective tenderers, and we received 4 conforming tenders. An evaluation panel comprised Council's Manager Economic and Community Development and Director Assets.
Sorry, who was it? Councillor Pearce. Councillor Keeble, thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Oh, pretty straightforward. Supporting look after the events up there, and good luck to them, and I hope it all goes well.
Councillor Keeble. Nothing. Any further comment? Councillor Forsyth.
Yeah, look, just a quick one. I notice quite often we see tender documents downloaded with 61, and there were only 4 conforming tenders. How many other tenders did we actually receive out of that 61?
We received 4 tenders, all of which were conforming.
All of which.
Yeah.
So is there sometimes a problem with the way we set out our prospective tender documents? If 61 are looking at them, we're only getting 4 in reply. I would have thought we should get more back. Is it not juicy enough? Is it not something that people really want to do?
So, in my experience with the council, it's not unusual to receive a large number of downloads from prospective tenderers. So potentially not all of them are people who might be in a position, who might want to have a look at what we're tendering. So it is an unusual ratio, so it's quite high, but typically we would receive many more downloads than we would tenders submitted.
Tenders, right.
The other point I would make is that when the tenderers look at the information, there's a relatively simple summary that they see before they can go in and get more information. So potentially we've got a headline which talks about events and marketing support, and it's only when people go into the detail that's in the document that they actually understand what service it is that we're asking to be supplied.
So if they've just read the caption at the top, is that considered a download or not?
No.
Good.
They have to actually download the RFQ document itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will comment one thing, and that is that Carl Gray Media, I believe, is actually good. Thank you.
Councillor Pearce. Reply?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Take it to the vote then. All those in favour? It's carried. Item 8.3.1, Protected Disclosure Policy. Ms Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to outline minor changes to the Protected Disclosure Policy and seek Council's adoption of the revised policy. Trish, to address your questions, Protected Disclosures Policy is a policy we're required to have under the Protected Disclosures Act of 2012. It is a policy that seeks our commitment to not tolerating improper conduct, either internally by employees, officers or members, and not taking reprisals against anyone who should come forward to notify of such conduct. So you may be aware of old legislation that related to things such as whistleblower legislation. So it's the newest version of that sort of conduct legislation. Who does it protect? So it protects anyone who wishes to come forward and make an allegation for investigation as to improper conduct. The Protected Disclosures Officer's role is to be the contact point for the situation and to take all necessary steps to protect the identity of anyone making a disclosure. The welfare officer is somebody who is responsible for looking after the general welfare of the person who will be making the protected disclosure. No, these will be roles within council. So the changes to the policy, they're actually very minor changes to what is an existing policy. The changes to the policy actually remove role titles from the policy because we found that the role titles that were there were linked to an old organisational structure and roles that didn't exist any longer. So it is the intention for the CEO to nominate those responsibilities under the policy to officers within council. So the intention would that I would be one of those roles and that our governance officer would have one of those roles. Or anyone else who wishes to make an allegation, again a conduct allegation, and wishes for their identity to be protected.
Sorry, Councillor Knapstein.
Did you move it?
Second.
Question.
Yep. Councillor Knapstein.
It's to hold staff accountable. It's also, there is a protection for the person making the report. There's also a protection for the person against whom the report might be made, because that's the way that it operates, and it holds everybody at council accountable for, so it's a good thing to have in place. And it's just a renamed Whistleblower Act, in effect.
Nothing to be.
Any further comment? Take to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried. Eight point 3.2, the quarterly finance report. Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to note the finance report being the quarterly review for quarter 3 to the period ending the 31st of March 2018. Council is forecasting a full year surplus of our budgeted surplus of 2.7 million. However, the primary drivers of this increased forecast include a higher than expected grant income of $0.95 million due to our financial assistance grants and the timing of those within the budget cycle, as well as our Roads to Recovery grants exceeding expectations. We have also received some grants for new projects, which include the Myrtleford Library upgrade, the Mount Buffalo Business Case Assessment activation, and the flood event in December of 2017, for which the funds are committed funds but have yet to be spent. So that contributes to a current surplus forecast. However, those funds are committed going forward.
Councillor Keeble. Thank you. Councillor Keeble.
The other areas there include the lower than expected employee costs due to vacant positions, some of those which will be getting filled over time. Higher than expected rates from the result of increased development in the Shire at 0.3, and reduced materials and service expenditure due to a combination of cost savings and delays. So I think it's a pretty good quality report.
Okay.
I concur with Councillor Keeble, and it's all pretty straightforward as written.
Okay, any further comment? Procurement policy, item 8.3.3. Who's doing that one? Councillor. Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Just
Yeah.
I don't know the protocol in this meeting, but are we able to ask questions following your...
No, sir.
Thank you.
No, the questions. The question time is at the start of the meeting. I did make an exception there. I thought it'd be easier in that regard.
May I say, Mr. Mayor, that at the end of the meeting, see one of us and ask your question. Yep.
Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The procurement policy is a key instrument that outlines our principles and standards for the purchase of all goods, services and works by Council. Under Section 186A of the Local Government Act, we are required to review our procurement policy yearly, and this is our current review of the procurement policy for the year. We are recommending some changes to the procurement policy, which include some wording changes, particularly to the introductory sections. We have added a component for environmental sustainability to this policy. We know that this is an issue that is very close to many people's expectations. Amended some of the documentation requirements as outlined under the threshold tables.
So moved.
Councillor Keeble. Councillor Nicholas, sorry. Councillor Keeble.
The procurement policy is a really important document in Council. It runs a fair expenditure that's attached to it. It's the way we do our business, and you know, the procurement policy, with having the new sustainability sections added into it, so it strengthens that, I think, in regards to the direction of the Council, and happy with the amendments of the amounts in the procurement policy.
Just very briefly to the environmental sustainability clauses, because I think it's really important that businesses that can, and obviously Council is one of those businesses, creates demand for products that have demonstrable environmentally sustainable parts to them, such as recycled content, etc. So it's great to see that we've been able to build it into the policy. We're still going for best value, so certainly not being silly about buying green products. But I also just wanted to add that across Australia, $20 billion is spent by local government, so there's actually a really good chance to start driving some change through really good procurement. So we're taking a step in that direction.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Forsyth?
Just a brief comment about this particular policy, in that it's part of, I think, what Alpine Shire is trying to do to show that it is accountable, because that's a term that gets bandied around a little bit too often in this chamber, with the negative side of it being pointed out. And I think that this particular policy just improves that accountability and or defines where things are and what they actually are.
Thank you.
I think the procurement policy is one of those policies that has to come to the chamber annually, I believe. So this is why you see it comes every year. I think I've done it 11 times. No further comment.
Thank you. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 8.3.4, Councillor Reimbursement of Expenses Policy 76, Mayor and Councillor Vehicle Policy 75. Ms Cook again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report deals with minor updates to the Councillor Reimbursement of Expenses Policy, and we are proposing to revoke the Mayor and Councillor Vehicle Policy by incorporating the Councillor Reimbursement of Expenses Policy was last adopted by Council in August of 2013, and the Mayoral and Council Vehicles Policy in June of 2012. There have been minor updates to the communication and equipment section of the policy, as well as simplifying the attendance as a conference component of the policy. The other major change is simply to incorporate the vehicle provision and revoke the original vehicle policy.
So moved.
Councillor Nicholas. Seconder. Councillor Pearce. Councillor Nicholas.
I think it's really good that we've got a streamlined policy now that makes much more sense in operations. Councillors now use the fleet vehicles rather than have dedicated vehicles.
Councillor Pearce. No. Any further comment? Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. I think it should be noted, now that we have voted, that there is no longer a Deputy Mayor vehicle. The Deputy Mayor, if they require a vehicle, will source one from the vehicle fleet that we have also reduced substantially, and the Mayor is for use. That is, all those cost savings augur well for reduction of costs, and if we expect staff to become more cost effective, councillors, I believe, should follow or lead by example, and I believe we have done that, or are doing that as well, continue to. Item 8.3.5, Public Amenity and Public Place Contract Extensions.
Excuse my voice.
Oh, yes.
The purpose of this report is to activate 2-year extension options on each of the listed expiring contracts. The current contracts were awarded at a council meeting of August 2011 following a statewide invitation to tender process. The first option to extend was approved by council at an ordinary council meeting on September 2016. The current contractors under these contracts are satisfactorily meeting the requirements under this contract. In addition, we have undertaken some benchmarking exercise to ensure that best value for council is still being undertaken under these option extensions. At the end of these contract periods, we would be undertaking another tender process in the marketplace for contracts going forward.
Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Keeble.
Question in regards to number 1. In regards to the public waste and recycling collection, any comment in regards to the current waste debate in this state or this country about recyclables to other countries? Will this, has this contract considered those areas?
So this contract is not affected by that current market adjustment. These suppliers are not responsible for the movement of that's undertaken by a transportation contract that we have that operates separate to this. The overall market adjustment has yet to impact on Alpine under our current contract arrangements overall. That's not to say that going forward into next financial year, as that market situation continues to change, that we may not see some impacts, but at the moment we have made no adjustments to our current contracts, not just these ones, but our actual curbside collection contracts and recycling contracts. It is the recycling contracts that are generally affected.
Thanks for that explanation. There might be some people out there that are interested in that particular topic, so thank you. And for the other contracts, the extension, I'd like to say, you know, the people, the companies that provide our cleaning services in our towns.
Councillor Nicholas?
Nothing to add.
Any further comment? Councillor Forsyth?
I will have a question on this one. I note that the recommendations only state to an estimated value of, therefore it's not a full contract, number one. And number two, if it's the estimated value and if the contract does go to that extent in that year, is there a CPI increase at that level? Or say, for instance, in number one there, if the estimated value, if the actual value only comes out at 200,000, is it then increased to 200,000 plus CPI, or is it to 227 plus CPI?
So the reason for the estimated value is because the amount that you end up paying for your waste depends on how many collections are required. So in a peak period you would collect more often than you would, or you'll clean more often than you would in a non-peak period. So the reason that this isn't a total value, and I'll note that the original contract reports that came up to council had no dollar figures in, but we felt it was better to have a dollar figure in and estimate how much we felt it would be appropriate under these contracts for the 2-year period to give an idea of quantum. So that's an estimation of what we believe under the contract scheduled rates per service that we would be using over the 2-year period. It's not a total value, because should we use the contracts less or more, then obviously pay less or more. CPI increases are by contract.
Councillor Keeble? No further. No further comment. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 9, Assembly of Councillors. That the summary of the recommendation is that the summary of the Assemblies of Council for May 2018 be received. Councillor Keeble, Councillor Nichols, discussion on that. We'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 10, General Business from my left. Councillor Pearce.
If I may. Just on what we were talking about earlier about cars, I meant to jump in, but I was a bit late at the end there. When I first came here back in the early 2000s, you know, there was a lot of cars out the back here. The Mayor drove around in the latest Fairmont or Brougham or whatever it was going there. The CEO had the same. Councillors all had plenty of access to a car. The managers, directors all had cars. And there was, you know, 25 cars parked out there for all that use. Nowadays there's 4. It's just an amazing effort that's happened over the last few years. And how many cars does the council really need? Well done to our Shire.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. The Mayor drives a Hyundai i30, by the way.
And he's about the eighth person in it. Done 48,000 miles.
That's me, Morris Minor. No, Councillor Epstein.
The Rural Councils Victoria conference that I went to, and the theme of the conference was livability. And I'm just acknowledging those people who have pointed out to me that sometimes, particularly in Bright, we become more visitable than we are livable. And this is something that Council takes seriously, and we do look at it. But these changes and this management may take a little time to be evidenced. So hang in there.
Thank you. Councillor Forsyth? No. And I have no general business myself. Item 11, motions for nil. And item 12, reception and reading of petitions. There are nil. And item 13, the one everyone loves, documents for sealing. Oh, very good. Councillor Nicholas. And the second, Councillor Keeble, you've had a long day anyway.
The camera was on there. I think you beat me.
Thank you. All those in favour? Yep, carried. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you for those who have attended. Those councillors will be available for those who wish to speak to them after the meeting. Those who are travelling back to Mount Beauty, please be careful. The deer are just extraordinary this year, and yeah, so watch out on that road. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. Thank you for those who are viewing on the YouTube channel, and we'll converse again next month. Thank you.